Come into this place with your whole self, the parts that are raw and exposed, the parts that are beaming with joy, the part that is seeking the truth, the new, the possible. Come into this place and open your heart, lay down your burden, lift up your hope for something new to happen. Come into this place with fellow travelers on the journey, some faces new and some familiar, and all welcoming you here, now, to this moment. Come, let us worship together.
Good morning, everyone. Oh, come on, you're outside. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Are you happy to be here?
Yes.
Yeah, I am. And in case, for those who are wondering, and I don't suspect many who live in Bedford are wondering, while Dorothy was dancing, it's a bird, it's Superman. No, it's a plane from Hanscom Air Force Base flying over. So we get those here occasionally. I love being outside because then no sooner do we have the need for a quiet moment than we'll hear the walk beep go off, or the motorcycles go by, or the truck with, needs a better muffler. So anyway, it's great to be here. It's great to be outside. Welcome to First Parish in Bedford. I'm Brad Conner. I'm music director here, as if you guys didn't know. We've got 3 announcements this morning. First is, I'm going to ask Lisa Maria Steinberg to raise her hand. She is our Faith Development Director. She has reminded me that at 11:15 through noon today, right here at the front steps, K through 12, is that pre-K through 12, see, that's 8. Pre-K through 8, through 7, it's 8, right, pre-K through 8, is meeting right here, fully masked, for the beginning of the year in faith development. Also, noon, right here, headed by Annie, is a book discussion on braiding sweet grass. Again, right here at noon. And then at 3 o'clock, Coming of Age is meeting here somewhere, and that's the 9th graders, right? And so those are all the announcements for today, and let's move on with the service.
So I hate to contradict Brad, but there's one more announcement. We are going to try joys and concerns a little differently today than we have in the past. Obviously, we're trying a lot of things differently, and we'll see how it goes. So, you may have gotten a card already, and if you did not and you would like one, Lori Groves is going to be handing them out. They're little cards that say joys and concerns, where you can write a joy or concern, and then you can check, please do not read aloud, if you would just like the ministers to receive that, or you can check, please read aloud, and we'll read it at the time in the service when we have joys and concerns. If you were on Zoom, you can chat your joys and concerns. You can private chat them to me, but if you chat them to the whole group, that's okay too. I'll still read it when it comes to that time in the service. These cards, for those who are here in person, will be collected during the offertory, during the time of the offering collection. So if you want a card now, wave to Lori back there, get your card. You can write down what you wish to share. It will be collected during the offering, and we'll see how that goes. And so, with that, I am going to lead our Unison Affirmation. And I have heard from many of you that we miss saying our Unison Affirmation in Spanish. And you know, my understanding, though I was not yet here when this happened, my understanding is that you began doing that when you invited our sanctuary guest who lived here for over 3 years into our space. And it was a way of saying, you too are part of our great covenant. We'll say this piece of our worship in a language that you can understand. And we were thinking, well, happily, that person is no longer stuck here with us, and we're glad that she is free. And so we dropped that part of our worship service. But many people have missed it, and that tells me that people are longing to continue to offer a symbolic welcome to people who may speak another language or come from another place. And so this morning I will lead our Unison Affirmation in both English and Spanish, and we can stay in conversation as a congregation about what kind of symbolic welcomes we want to offer and in which languages and in which ways. So without further ado, rise if that feels good to you, and we will say our Unison Affirmation together. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. El amor es el espíritu de esta iglesia, y el servicio es su ley. Este es nuestro gran pacto, vivir juntos en paz, buscar la verdad en el amor, y ayudarnos los unos a los otros.
Good morning. For those of you who have not yet met me, my name is Wendy Bell, and I'm currently here with you as the interim senior minister after John Gibbons' retirement. And because I am an interim minister on this, my second Sunday with some of you, I want to talk a little bit more in depth about interim ministry. And what I want to do is say, just basically, that we are traveling ministers who go where we are needed, stay for a little while, and help congregations in whatever way we can as they prepare to search for new settled ministers. And then we say goodbye. We often like to joke that we are basically pre-fired. So if you don't like what we do, that's okay. We won't be with you forever. But we do get to walk with you for a time on your journey from where you are now to where you want to be. Where you were was saying goodbye to your former minister, and where you want to be is saying hello to a new one. We bring with us a kind of a map or a process for our time together, and some of you I know heard Deb Weiner talk about some of these steps. We have a series of tasks, 5 of them, one of which is helping a congregation explore its history and come to terms with that history, which includes some celebrating and sometimes some grieving or some processing or healing. A second task is helping a congregation to explore its identity, to figure out who you are now and what your strengths are and what your challenges might be and what you need to do. The third task is helping a congregation to navigate changes, which sometimes includes changes of leadership. The fourth one is about helping congregations to reconnect, often with the Unitarian Universalist Association and its resources, or with other congregations, though I know that is something that you have done very well through the Sanctuary program, for example. And the fifth task is helping you to prepare yourself for your new minister, which can include any number of things, including perhaps renewing your vision. Now, with that said, because I am a traveling minister, I like to travel fairly lightly, but I do carry a few important things with me to help me do my work, many of which are symbolic of the pieces of work that I've just described. And what I would love to do today for this Time for All Ages is to invite a few of you up here if you're willing to come, and I promise I don't bite. Whether you're a young person, a middle-aged person, an older person, whoever you are, I'd like to have a few volunteers to help me unpack my backpack so I can show you what's in there. Do I have anybody who's willing to help do that today? Awesome, come on up. Anybody else? Come on up. Yeah, we could use 4 or 5 of you. There are a number of items in here. It's sort of falling over here, but it's got a number of pockets. It's got that main compartment. Why don't we start there with that main compartment, and we'll just pull out things 1 at a time or 2 at a time, and I'll tell you what they are. And when you pull something out, just hold it up so that people here and on Zoom can see you. Awesome. So I carry with me some pictures of my family every time I go to a church. My wife, Kathy, my daughter, Caitlin, to help remind me where I come from and the people to whom I belong, and also that I have a personal life outside of ministry. I bring with me this book called In the Interim, which helps us to glean the wisdom from other congregations who've been through this before, and other interim ministers, my colleagues who do this work with me. I bring a water bottle with Unitarian, Universalist, and other religious symbols on it to remind all of us of the connections that we have to other Unitarian Universalists and the way that those connections can nourish us. A box of tissues to symbolize that some of the work that I do is listening to your stories and helping you process whatever feelings you might have about this change that you're going through in the congregation right now. Sadness, fear, anxiety, loss. Oh, one of my favorites. This is an otter. a symbol of playfulness, yes, to remind us that this can be a fun time too. It's not all hard work. Oh, this is one of my newest additions, and this guy needs a name, so part of your job is going to be helping me come up with a name for him before I go to the next congregation. Well, let's talk about it afterwards, all right? I want a name, because I do need a name. This dragon is the thing that reminds me, and hopefully all of you, that sometimes the things we're most afraid of, when we face them, aren't really as scary as we think they're going to be. Oh yes, you probably can't see this, but I have a little heart that I carry around with me that reminds me that the most important thing we do when we're together, no matter how hard things get or how fun they are or anything, is to remember to love each other and to treat each other with kindness. I have some stuff in the side pockets too. What else? Oh yes, this is an important one. I carry a mirror with me to help reflect back to you who you are, to help you take a look at yourselves and what you like about yourselves and what the challenges are that you're facing. What else do we have? Oh yeah, flashlight. Do you know how to turn that on? There's a button on the back end. Shine it at them. Yeah. This flashlight is for helping us look into places, corners that you maybe haven't examined for a while, to take a look at things more closely. What else? Oh, yes, this is very important. The pair of binoculars, which helps us to see where we're going, right? The vision for the future, the place where we want to go. You know what that is? That is a compass, which is the thing that's going to help guide us and keep us from getting lost or wandering aimlessly as we go through this process. I think that might be it. Thank you guys so much. Awesome. You are awesome backpack unpackers. And I am going to talk about the name with you of that dragon. The other thing I want to talk about is this walking stick that I carry with me everywhere. It has on it, some of you may be able to see, a lizard or a gecko of some kind. And in some cultures, a lizard represents dreaming. And so I like to remember that we're walking together on this journey and always dreaming about what could be. The other neat thing about some lizards, maybe some of you know this, about their tail. Does anyone know about lizards' tail, geckos' tails? You want to shout something out about it. What's that? They regrow. Yes, they regrow. So what I like about these lizards and this fact about their tails is that sometimes if a lizard gets its tail stuck, maybe in the mouth of someone who is trying to eat it, it can drop its tail and it can move on and escape, and then it can regrow its tail. And so the reason I like to think about interim ministry in terms of these geckos is that if we find that there's anything during this time that is holding us back in some way, old ways of doing things, old assumptions about how things ought to be done, and they're holding us back, we can let some of those things go and trust that we will be renewed and restored in the process. Sound good? All right. Thank you. Thank you. Do you want to announce the offering? Fantastic.
As we journey along together, figuring out who we want to be and what we are keeping and what we may be letting go of, we do need to still sustain and strengthen this congregation. The morning's offering will now be gratefully received, and if you are here in person, you can also pass in any joy or concern cards that you have to the ushers as they receive the morning offering.
In the spirit of journey and in honor and recognition that we are about to hear one another's joys and concerns, I want to offer you this reading, which is also a prayer by Angela Herrera called Prayer for Travelers. This is a prayer for all the travelers, for the ones who start out in beauty, who fall from grace, who step gingerly, looking for the way back, and for those who are born into the margins, who travel from one liminal space to another, crossing boundaries in search of center. This is a prayer for the ones whose births are a passing from darkness to darkness, who all their lives are drawn toward the light and keep moving, and for those whose journeys are a winding road that begins and ends in the same place, though only when the journey is completed do they finally know where they are. For all the travelers, young and old, aching and joyful, weary and full of life, the ones who are here and the ones who are not here, the ones who are like you, and they're all like you, and the ones who are different, for in some ways we each travel alone. This is a prayer for traveling mercies, for sure-footedness, for clear vision, for bread, for your body and spirit, for water, for your safe arrival, and for everyone you see along the way.
So now I have the honor of honoring some of the joys and sorrows in our community. And I wanted to begin with a joy that is in my heart, which is really some gratitude for the people making these worship services that are both outdoors and on Zoom possible. And so, yes, exactly. So, big shout out to the tech team, the people who are making the sound work, the video cam work, the Zoom on the laptop work, and also shout out to all the people who set up these chairs, the ushers, and the folks just pitching in and grabbing heavy platforms and doing what needs to be done. Thank you. And that is a joy. Another joy from someone is that the high school is doing live theater again. And I think that's so lovely. And also, here's a joy. Dawn LaFrance Linden attended her son Tommy's 2020 college graduation, so a little delayed, but yesterday, joined by Doug Mooter and Deb Bedeau, and it was a long-awaited, joyful day. So congratulations to Tommy. Oh, I like this applause. Moving into concerns. Concern for the brother-in-law of Marge and Norm Heckman, Chuck, who has had a rocky recovery from colon cancer surgery. So holding them in our hearts. This is from Dorothy Africa. For the remembrance of Naomi Ronan, a wonderful world light for many years, a reference librarian at Harvard Law Library and a dear friend. And then another life that we want to honor, this one from Diana Archibald. A longtime mentor and dear friend, David Perosian, died suddenly this week. He was a big part in helping along Diana's career path and a kind and generous friend. She will really miss someone who saw her potential and believed in her. And then we are also sending love out to Ginny and Dave Packer's families in our hearts. And also some care and love to Kathy Cordez's mended legs. And we are grateful for the mending that can happen and sorry that it must happen. We also take a moment for all the joys, gratitudes, concerns, sorrows, and anxieties we hold in our hearts and our bodies and minds this morning. And we hope that by coming together and sharing, we can amplify the joy and reduce the load of the concerns. Oh, I have one more. I don't want to skip it. So this is Megan Lines chiming in from Zoom, sending best wishes and love to all at the start of the new church year and in this new chapter of interim ministry. She says, I think of you all the time and you are in my heart. And it's really good to have love from our past staff members as we move into this time. So thank you, Megan.
Well, as many of you are no doubt aware, our Jewish family members and friends and neighbors recently finished observing their high holy days, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. The next holiday or festival that they will celebrate is the Festival of Sukkot, which begins at sunset tomorrow and continues through sunset on the 27th. Sukkot, many of you probably already know, is a holiday that is biblical in origin and has double significance. According to the book of Exodus, Sukkot is the festival of ingathering, a celebration of the harvest when the crops are brought in. According to the book of Leviticus, Sukkot is a commemoration of the Exodus, when the Israelites escaped from Egypt and wandered in the desert for 40 years on their way to the promised land. Those observing Sukkot build temporary shelters with thatched roofs through which they can see the stars at night and feel the rain. For 10 days, they dwell in them as much as is possible, including eating many of their meals. These shelters represent the temporary dwellings in which farmers would have lived during the harvest time, as well as those fragile dwellings in which the Israelites would have dwelt as they made their way through the desert on their long journey. They are a reminder of the fragility of life, the impermanence of human endeavor, and of our utter dependence on the source of life. It always feels fitting to me that Sukkot falls right around this time of year, just as new interim ministries are so often beginning. Interim times, after all, are also a reminder of impermanence and fragility. And how poignant to begin this interim time worshiping outside under the wide open canopy of sky and under the trees and with the wind. Roger S. Nicholson, who is a retired UCC minister and the editor of a book called Temporary Shepherds, a Congregational Handbook for Interim Ministry, writes that interim ministry has been likened to the biblical time of wandering in the wilderness after the flight of the Hebrew people from Egypt. A sense, he says, of lostness, confusion, and uncertainty may be present in the congregation. There may be pronounced anxiety about the future that prevents people from focusing on the present. As with those ancient Hebrews in the Sinai desert, he says, there may be murmuring and complaining when routines get upset and when accustomed services and programs are disrupted or changed. That sounds awful. I don't know what your expectations are of this interim time, but I promise you it's not going to be that bad. It certainly will not take 40 years. You won't have to spend all of it outside in the weather. It will include some uncertainty and anxiety and probably even some complaining. But it can also be a very exciting time. A time of exploration and dreaming, a time of trying new things, new ways of being, a time of adventure and possibility. It's all really about how you approach it. How adventurous are you feeling? Now, this is the point at which I need to confess to you that I am not a very adventurous person myself. I am much more of an armchair adventurer. I love to read books about other people's adventures. I like to read about polar explorers, for example, people who tried to find their way through the Northwest Passage without being crushed by Arctic ice when there still was Arctic ice, and those who crossed the inhospitable landscape of Antarctica to plant a flag on the South Pole. Those make for really good stories while I'm sitting cozy on my couch, drinking tea and eating biscuits. But I am not one of those people. Truth be told, I am a lot more like Bilbo Baggins, for those of you who are familiar with The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. I seldom have adventures, and I try not to do unexpected things too often. In the opening scene of The Hobbit, as some of you may remember, the wizard Gandalf appears at Bilbo's door and says, I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure that I'm arranging, and it's very difficult to find anyone. You remember that? And the Hobbit responds by saying, well, I should think so in these parts. We are plain, quiet folk and have no use for adventures. Nasty, disturbing, uncomfortable things. Make you late for dinner. I can't think what anybody likes in them, said Bilbo. Now, I, like the Hobbit, appreciate comfort and routine and ordinariness and good food. And yet, here I am, a professional interim minister traveling from one congregation to another, always starting anew, meeting new people, trying new things, learning a lot. And somehow, much to my surprise, I find that I actually enjoy it a lot. There is within each of us, even me, although it's sometimes deeply hidden, a part of us that knows, as one author, David Adam, has written, that life is meant to be an adventure. When we cease to reach out and stretch ourselves, something in us dies or feels frustrated, for life has to be lived to the fullest. For life to be lived to the fullest, it has to be adventurous, which may explain the near universal appeal of what Joseph Campbell once called the hero's journey, the so-called monomyth, which he described this way, saying, a hero ventures forth from the world of common day into a region of supernatural wonder, fabulous forces are there encountered, and a decisive victory is won. The hero comes back from his mysterious adventure with the power to bestow boons on his fellow people. This is the classic adventure story arc. This is the Iliad and the Odyssey. This is the Lord of the Rings and Star Wars. This is the Wizard of Oz and the Lion King. This is also every great memoir that has ever been written and every great story ever told about a congregation that has faced a challenge of some sort and was, through trial, transformed and renewed. Joseph Campbell wrote about the common stages of the hero's journey. The first is the call to adventure. The call is heard in the midst of the mundane, the normal, and the routine. It is a call to leave behind the familiar and comfortable and set off into the unknown. It is a call to risk. Often, what happens next in the story is a refusal of that call, right? The hero says, "No way, not me, I'm not going." Whether out of fear or insecurity or a sense of inadequacy or a sense of duty to others or simple preference for the known rather than the unknown. If the hero or heroine accepts the call, they find themselves in a new world, completely different from their own. It is often filled with magical creatures or supernatural powers, and usually too there is a wizard or a guide who appears in order to offer supernatural aid. This figure offers the hero a means to complete the quest, but it can never be completed by the wizard or the guide. The hero has to do the work. Along the way, there are many tests and obstacles. The hero succeeds through his success or her success or their success becomes stronger. Each helps to prepare them for the final stage of the quest. And the reward for completing the quest is that the hero grows in spirit and in strength. The hero's success is life-changing and impacts others, not only the hero alone, but the community from which the hero came and to which the hero returns. Now, over the years, I've come to see interim ministry as a kind of hero's journey in which you, the congregation, are the hero. Your ordinary world, your routine has been disrupted by the retirement of a long-term, much-beloved senior minister. And that disruption was your call to adventure. The more adventurous among you may have already accepted the call to adventure with zest and zeal and get up and go. So others of you may have accepted only reluctantly and perhaps only more recently, and some of you may still be saying, "No way, not me, I don't want to go," and that's okay. In any case, this interim world is somewhat different from the ordinary world that you're used to and that you've left behind. There will be different ways of doing things and different priorities set and different conversations to be had. The good news is that there is a map, that is the map of the interim process with its 5 tasks. Exploring and coming to terms with history, exploring and discovering a new identity, navigating changes in leadership, renewing connections with the larger association, and preparing to commit to new directions. This is a path that I've traveled before with other congregations. I am, in a sense, despite my Baggins-like tendencies, kind of like your Gandalf. My role is to help you follow the map. My role is to ask you a lot of questions, to remind you to stay curious and open. I can offer you the means by which to complete the quest and lots of resources, but I cannot complete it for you. It is your work to be done, not mine. And because I am a Baggins who doesn't relish change all that much, My supernatural gift to you is this: a great deal of empathy for what you're going through. There may be some tests and obstacles along the way. Experience tells me that those are the things that make you as a congregation stronger, if you face them. Dragon-headed fears may rise up. I encourage you to either outwit them or befriend them. And all of this will help you to find your holy grail, a successful partnership with your new settled minister, with whom you can grow together and continue to serve the world around you in sometimes new and different ways. I do this work, and I enjoy it very much because I've seen how renewing it can be for congregations. And I'm not just talking about the success of finding a new minister. You know, any congregation, whether they approach this interim time as a hero's journey or not, can find a new minister. I'm talking about the intangibles. I'm talking about the growth, the renewal, the transformation that can occur if you make space for it. I'd like to encourage you to think about this interim time as your opportunity to experience that kind of transformation and renewal. You're a very different congregation than you were 31 years ago or so when John Gibbons arrived. Bedford is a very different place now than it was. And the world in which we live, well, times have changed. Some of the challenges that we face in our own lives and in the global community are new, and some of them are simply much more urgent. And you as a congregation are being called to do new things in a new time, in new ways. Are you ready to answer that call? Are you ready to answer that call?
Yes!
I leave you for now with these closing words from Walt Whitman. Afoot and light-hearted, I take to the open road. Healthy, free, the world before me. Whoever you are, come travel with me. However sweet these laid-up stores, however convenient this dwelling, we cannot remain here. So come, together, forward, onward, let us go. Go now, enjoy and return again in love. Amen, and blessed be.